Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Blockchain Banter. I'm Jen, I'm your host, and I'm here with Dr. Mark Richardson, project lead at Bancor and Carbon DeFi, along with Keith Allen, TA and algo trader, order book analyst, and co founder of Material Indicators, and Crypto Corio, data scientist and narratives trader. Thank you guys for joining me again. On this, well, I don't know if it's beautiful where you're at, but I just looked out my window and I'm having wonderful weather right now. So I hope it is pleasant where all of you guys are at the moment. Um,
It's hot, but I
Heat.
can't complain about that with someone from Arizona. So,
Do you prefer the heat or the cold?
I like it. I like it a little cooler. I don't like it freezing cold, but in the 90s with humidity in the above 75, 80% is a little thick,
Okay, I don't have
a little
humidity
sticky,
anymore. Remember,
right?
I ditched the East Coast, so I'm a little bit drier, they
Hmm.
say.
There you go.
Um, Okay, Keith, I actually wanted to start with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I see that you already have your screen down here. I'm going to bring you up. Kind of want to see what you're looking at. I always like to compare what it is you're looking at. Bitcoin kind of leads, right?
Yes, for
And
sure.
then see what Corio's kind of looking at in terms of narratives and any of the alts, like what might be following, what might have kind of broken out on its own. And then Mark is just going to kind of take us home here at the end.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, I have been, as you know, I'm primarily focused very heavy on Bitcoin, and so we'll do that because we're seeing some things that I've kind of expected over the weekend. A lot of people, even before the weekend, I think somewhere around after the ETH ETFs were approved, um, a lot of people thought that things were just going to moon up from there. And that obviously hasn't happened. We've seen some spikes, but we haven't really seen that breakout that everybody's been looking for and waiting for. And well, we're seeing more signs that that's going to take longer than a lot of people seem to have patience for. I think the first misnomer was that a lot of people compared the ETH ETF approval to the Bitcoin ETF approval, and they're different beasts for a number of reasons. But especially with the BTC one, there was the 10 years of pent up demand, and we can, we all know about all of that. But I think most people expected they were going to start trading the next day, and that's not the case. There's more administrative work and due diligence to be done before those actually get to the market. So I think that was the first thing that may have caught some people off guard. Nonetheless, last week was just a really, really big week, I think, for the overall space in terms of the macro narrative. We had legislation, we had the ETFs, we had legislation on U.S. trying to build a regulatory framework for crypto. That was huge. We heard presidential candidates talking about their acceptance of crypto. And we also heard President Biden, who has now flipped, saying that he would support this legislation to regulate crypto because he was previously against it. And now he realizes that's going to come at a political, that could be political suicide. So now he's okay with signing off on that legislation if it makes it through the rest of Congress. And then there was another piece of legislation that bans U.S. central banks from creating a CBDC. All net positives for the space, in my opinion. So why hasn't price just moved up? Well, good question. We could talk about, we could speculate on a lot of different things. We might be right. We might be wrong. Nobody really has a freaking clue. But what we can get some data off of is what we see in the charts. And that's why I like what the charts tell me more than what I hear in the news. Because even if some presidential candidates promise that they're going to embrace crypto, how much do we trust them or anything else that comes out of their faces? So looking at the charts, the first thing I noticed here, and we have talked about this so many times, this 69K level, this is a weekly chart. We did get the green weekly close. We also got a red trend precognition signal at that weekly close. In full transparency, this did invalidate a little bit yesterday when we got this spike. So, there's a little bit of Uh, Yesterday was a holiday. I don't think a lot of people realized that as well. It was a U.S. holiday, so TradFi was closed. No ETF flows. A little bit of whale games going on, and so we did get that spike yesterday. This invalidated, and the signal did come back, but it's there for now. Whatever the case may be, 69K has been a absolute a bear to pass. And as you can see, all the times that we've interacted with that level, we've been rejected. We talk about the weakness from those wicks that come down, and it happened again here this week. Look, we hovered over the line, for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, the last week really. But we can't seem to get more than 1 or 2 complete candles above that line in a row before things start breaking down. And so, I've been saying since we first interacted with this level back in March, beginning of March, until we start seeing full candles above this level, we don't have a validated RS flip. That's a resistance support flip for those not familiar with the term. We need that RS flip, consolidate up here, and then move up. I've also been saying that I feel like this is a very, very broad range to consider as a consolidation range. Where from what our lower low is at 56.5, and our all-time high is at 70, almost 78K. That's a 30% range. That's a lot from. I don't consider that a consolidation. I consider it a range, but I don't really consider it a consolidation because it's so wide. So I've been wanting to see a tighter range like we had here. This was a $2,000 range. This was a $5,000 range. And those to me are more typical of stronger ranges that we get that foundation for that next leg up like we had here and like we had here. Of course, notably, these never got retested. They should technically, but guess what? Crypto doesn't care. So we may or may not ever get those retests. Holding out for them seems to be a futile exercise and one that could cost you an opportunity cost. But that said, I always keep dry powder just in case we get that opportunity. So in the past couple of weeks, I've been saying sentiment for 60K has faded. And we're going to look at fire charts here, and not only look at that, but we're going to look at the clues that we got out of the order book that really indicated that price was going to continue to be pushed down, suppressed, as we're seeing here through this series of lower highs. And now, the question is, are we going to get higher lows, or are these lows going to be defended as we have it here right now? So let's switch over to fire charts, and we can see that we have these areas that obviously up above 70K has been very stacked for quite some time. I mean, if I take it back even further, we can see how far this goes back. Really, since we interacted with these levels up here above 70K, it's been difficult, right? And you can see these larger blocks of liquidity up here, the brighter yellow ones that just seem to keep lowering down and dropping down on price, and price follows. When they get lifted, what happens? We get the bid strength down here and price moves up. And then we shot back up 75, 76K. We had another block, and then that quickly got moved down to this, like 71.5, 73 range. And that pushed things down last week. And so, starting to emerge up, we see the same thing happening here. And I'll now take this down to a shorter time frame to make it easier to see. But I want you to notice something here is this just came in really over the last 24 hours or so. We have an extended ladder extending down now back just a shade below 60K, down in the 59K. This was gone before, remember? It was gone. So now it's starting to come back in there. If we take it into the monthly, you can see it a little bit better here. But look at the concentration here above, right? That's 80 million stacked right here from 70K up, just in that double block of yellow right there. But we have these concentration levels that have really been kind of anchoring support on the liquidity side, 60K being the strongest of it. Only about 22 million there. So it's not like an inordinate amount that can't be penetrated, but that's where things are anchored at the moment. And seeing a little bit more come in here Um, you know, to me, liquidity equals sentiment. There's not much sentiment below 60K, but some is starting to fade back in a little bit. But the areas of constant that I'm concentrated on here, obviously 60K is the strongest. 65K also has a decent amount, and we now see more coming in at 66 and 67. Are these guys front runners, or are they trying to protect from making a lower low here? Right. So this is kind of important. We look at those levels 65, 66. Look where these key moving averages are. Right. That 21 week moving average is right there at 66. The 50 and the 100 are about to death cross here at 65K. So all of this area is very interesting to me. But we might get front run down here based on what we're seeing come in above, right? So if this is 65K, we have new blocks coming in at 66 and at 67 that may insulate that. In terms of where the lower low is, obviously on the larger time frame, it's at where do we go? 56.5, I think a week or so ago, down here, but we've seen some higher lows since then. So can we build on this? Which means I think the low from here, the most recent low is at 66.3 ish. So maybe 67 does hold. Maybe not. We'll see. Right? If it's a lower low, um, this is the one I would have more weight in. But obviously, if things go past this, then that means breaking down further. If the 21 held, if any of these moving averages held, I wouldn't be concerned that it's a lower low than this one right here. I look more to this range here, obviously at 60K, and then this, of course, last line of defense. You lose this one, and then things, in my opinion, get uglier, where we would likely go down to, revisit the 50 to 52K range. That's it in a nutshell for me. So I continue to watch these levels, and a lot of people are good at trying to time. Well, let me rephrase that. A lot of people claim they're good at trying to time what the long-term targets are going to be on the calendar. I'm macro bullish. I think that we do see a new all-time high from where we are sometime before the end of this cycle, but I can't pinpoint it and say that in August it's going to happen. What I can say is, based on what I'm seeing right here, right now, doesn't look like it's happening today. We've got way too much ask liquidity right overhead and not enough concentration of bid liquidity stacked here to make that move, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see, when we have this confluence between where this liquidity is and where the technical levels are on the chart, that gives me confidence in those levels, both on the downside and the upside. And when we see the dynamic of liquidity changing to where we see higher concentrations on the bid side than we have on the ask side, or we have roof pulls or rug pulls, whatever you want to call them, that changes things in a hurry. But at the moment, it just seems like we don't have the strength. We haven't been able to RS flip this 69K level, and that has to happen, right? To get a strong move up here, let's flip this thing, consolidate, and then work on this all-time high. These just random wicks up and getting a little weaker every time, obviously is not a sign that the market is ready to make that move just yet.
Okay, so Keith, that's one of the first things you said that caught my attention, because I actually wanted to ask you about this. I see, after this consolidation phase, and once everyone's done accumulating in this sort of range right now, like the Bitcoin is going to skyrocket and blah blah blah, right? And you can tell when it's like some hopium and mixed in there. But I wanted to ask your opinion of this. You're kind of bringing it back to the beginning and a little bit of what you were saying just now. You were saying that this range is just too much for you to consider a legitimate consolidation, like
Right. And so I
phase
want to
right now.
see, so
5-6 grand ish.
so we've seen it, right? It's pushing down, it's pushing down, it's pushing down, trying to establish, maybe we get a tighter consolidation range out of this. And right now, it's toppy. at that 69, 70K level. 69 is more technical in my opinion. 70 is more psychological. Whatever the case may be, we can wick past it. We could go to 73. But if we break down after that, then we still don't have the strength to make that move. And 73 is still a viable target for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of liquidity up there. There is a mountain of shorts up there that are leveraged, that are, prime for a squeezing or liquidation. And perhaps it's some of those largely leveraged shorts that are pushing this down. Maybe it's those entities that are pushing this down so that they can close those shorts and not get liquidated. That's certainly conceivable. We don't have any data that can tell me that yes, it is or isn't. Those entities, but that's that's logical in any event. And so if we said, just based on what we're looking at in the charts, 60K, I said over the weekend I thought 65K would hold, and 60 is a backup there. You can see more of this sentiment is now focusing around above 65K, right? So if we're in a 65 to 70K range, I'm very happy with that.
Right.
You know, it's yet to be established yet, but it's trying. You can see right here, this is what's happening. It's building right here. So let's triple let's triple the liquidity that's in this range here, and then we got a shot to maybe go up there.
Right. You did say that you're seeing a little bit more though from the 65 down to the 60, right? Like we're seeing a little bit of that where last week we really didn't see any at
Right.
all.
So let me apply some contrast here that makes it easy to see, really the important parts of the chart.
Okay, so not as much now that we can see more of the
Right. So
contrast.
so what I've done here is I'm filtering out the low liquidity to just focus on the areas where it's concentrated the most. And you can see 60K is the strongest. There's a pretty nasty gap here, right? To
Right.
63.5. So if you lost this, if we lost this, we'd probably get here pretty quick. Um, but this all coming in here now is relatively new. Above 65K is relatively new. So this and this is good. This is a sign of strength, or at least trying to slow slow the degradation down. Um, if they protected the lower low here, this would be good in my opinion. There's still a lot to get past. There's still a lot to get through here before we can break.
Got it.
So there's
Awesome.
there's
Thank
there's
you.
signs of there's
Go ahead.
signs of strength, but there's signs of weakness as well. You're just waiting. You're waiting until the scales actually go up on the bid side.
Right. One more question for you.
Hmm.
Earlier, when you were saying that there were a couple of reasons, whether they're trying to front run or they're trying to defend, we are seeing that liquidity in there,
Hmm.
right? Does it really make a huge difference whether they're trying to defend or front run? I
Doesn't make
mean,
a
bottom
difference.
line is we're seeing that liquidity,
The
right?
bottom
And
line,
there's kind of that
the net
sentiment.
effect is it's holding price up.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
just like it doesn't matter if this is organic or this is or this is liquidity hurting, or whether these are the guys who own shorts at 73K that are pushing it down. Doesn't matter. You can see it happening. The net effect is it pushes prices down.
Right. Okay. So not the why, just the fact that it is.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, we could spend
Cool.
all day talking about speculating on the why. The why
Hmm.
doesn't really the why doesn't really matter, with the exception of, I guess, if they're front running, that's a little bit of FOMO. That's a little bit of bullishness, and that they think things are going to move. But I just think that we got to see more here.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Choreo.
you.
Yeah, of course. By the way, Mark and Choreo, do either of you guys have any questions for Keith? Because we can all jump in here at any point in time. It's not like you have like your allotted 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I know Keith always jumps in and asks you guys questions, so feel free. Um, Choreo, in the meantime, I wanted to ask you what's going on with you, your dashboards, the narratives. I know I see a couple of people saying like AI right now is a really big narrative. Are you seeing the same? What's looking really strong, and what's kind of showing signs of weakness in your area of expertise here?
And are
Yeah,
you s
sure.
and I'm gonna add to that, I'm gonna add to that, and are you seeing anything that contradicts what I'm seeing here, or are you
Yeah.
seeing anything that can give us a clue of when we're gonna see this breakout?
Yeah, so let me share the screen so I can actually talk with the charts. I agree generally with what actually Keith said. The only thing I would say is that one of the things I've learned through these years trading crypto is that if I don't see a very strong rejection on strong resistance levels, usually I consider that bullish. Let me remove that all of these things. So right now, if we go on a weekly time frame, for example, um, we are here at a resistance that since March around these 70K levels that Keith mentioned, and never it has been. I mean, we have seen rejections. We saw very strong rejection here, but as of now, it has been retested for several times, and I would consider that rather bullish if we are not immediately seeing a very aggressive kind of bearish price action as we saw here. You see this, even these weekly candles, we went all the way up here, all the way down here, and then the week after we had all these long weeks that are usually bearish, and then we saw what happened. As of now, we are not seeing anything like that, and so although we haven't yet cleared this resistance level, I remain bullish in the fact that eventually this will happen. Although we will get some consolidation for some period, and this might last few weeks. We have mentioned about this possibility for the last editions that usually, post halving is some kind of very low volatility environment, and we might get something like this in the next weeks. However, as of now, at least, I'm not seeing anything that would bring us much lower, and I'm seeing that we are, and not just Bitcoin, but many other alts are just, seeing some kind of consolidation at resistance level, which is important resistance level for Bitcoin and for many other large caps. And because of this reason, I don't know if you look at Solana, for example. I haven't recently looked, but again, we saw rejection. We are going up, but then we are not seeing really kind of a bearish rejection. It's just healthy price movement, I would say. So on that side, I might be a bit more bullish than Keith. Now let's go to narratives. One of the things that I'm paying attention to is L1s, more specifically. And I wasn't here last week. I guess you guys talked about the ETH ETF news, which is a big one. What I'm seeing here in the price is that we see actually ETH for the first time. I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw ETH as the best performing L1, honestly, since I have this narrative dashboard. Might never have happened maybe, but as of now, ETH is the best performing L1, which is very indicative, and this is why I like to use a relative performance and compare things relative to each other rather than the absolute performance, because we might argue that 5% is not that much, but however, what is important to me is that ETH has never been in the top 3, top 5 performing L1s in the last month, and now it is the case. And so I'm paying a lot of attention on Ethereum. I'm very bullish on it. If we check ETH BTC pair, we are seeing, I posted about that, but let's delete that. We are seeing it kind of this channel that we've been since the merge here, since the merge went live, still the news event, and then since then, Bitcoin has either we were in a bear market and Bitcoin outperformed because of that, or Bitcoin, we had the Bitcoin ETF news and Bitcoin generally outperformed. So we were just trading on this channel. However, when we had the rumors about, this ETH ETF news being approved, we saw, this very nice candle. And we are, again, now we are kind of above this channel for whatever it's worth. But we are, again, not being rejected. So if I had to take a bet, I would, and I tweeted about that as well. I think that we are going to see some kind of bounce in this specific pair, and Ethereum kind of outperforming Bitcoin in the next month, considering that horizontally this also has been some kind of important level. We can see some retest here in 2022, and then here we lost that support, but again it was retested and many times, and so it seems that is an important level both on the horizontal level, which is important, and also here we are seeing a breakdown. So I actually I rotated a lot of my alts and stuff that I had into Ethereum itself just last week after the approval, because I expect some kind of bullish price action on Ethereum, and not only USD terms but also in compared to Bitcoin. So that's how
So
I'm
just
positioned.
real quickly, Corey, while you're there, so if you're expecting that ETH to outperform over the next month, then by virtue, you're saying that you also don't think that Bitcoin is going to break out over that period of time.
No, I'm not saying that both of these things can happen. BTC in USD term, it can break out. So we can have actually a breakout of BTC here on its USD pair. However, when you look at ETH BTC, I think that ETH will outperform. So both of these things can happen at the same time. It just means that ETH is outperforming Bitcoin,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't go higher.
Okay. Thanks
So
for that.
yeah, sure. So now coming back to the narratives, interestingly, Aptos is something else that is kind of outperforming. And if we look at its TVL, we can go on actually DeFi Lemma, we can put here Aptos, and you would see that its TVL is growing very nicely. You would see that over the social media is having kind of a good number of mentions, and also if you look at on-chain data, I checked that just before the meeting. Uh, if you look at on-chain data on Aptos, you would see that it's growing in the number of transactions on the Aptos chain itself. This is lagging a bit, but maybe I come back later to it. But the TVL is growing, so it seems that there is something happening with Aptos, which is making it to outperform all the other chain. Interestingly, Solana, which we are talking about a lot, or you hear a lot of talks on CT and Bitcoin, are not among the top performers. And if you look now, if we zoom out from L1s, and you mentioned AI, it's a good time to talk about AI as well. And if you look at all the narratives in the last 7 days, in the last month, what do we see here? Surprise, surprise. Again, memes are outperforming. So they had a relatively quiet month in April, but again, they are back with a very strong performance on a lot of memes. We see AI, which is here, not among the top 3-5, but still a very good performance here. And actually, interestingly, the L1 is something around here. So what we observe is that generally L1, coins haven't performed really strongly, and what has performed pretty good is these sectors. We see real world assets, which we had actually Ondo, one of the most interesting real world assets projects, performing really well here. We know that there is this tokenization fund from BlackRock, if I'm not mistaken, and that is, they're very bullish on it, and this is potentially a multi-trillion sector in the next years. And with the ETF approvals, this is becoming kind of the next expectation. So some of these real-world assets are pricing in this possibility, and this is why we are. If you look at the yearly performance, memes are look at the difference by how far, like by 3x compared to the second narrative. Memes are outperforming, but real-world assets are here in the position number 3, which shows actually how they're how strong they are. Now, AI projects are also among top projects and top narratives. There are different sectors on AI. So if you want to zoom in the AI narrative, there is I have this AI dashboard here, which actually shows the different, zoom out, the different sectors. So we have decentralized GPU projects like Akash, very good projects, and other projects here. Um, and we have the infrastructure projects, etc., etc. A lot of activity going on, and
There's
some of these.
so much info here, Corio.
Yeah, so this is, I mean,
I mean,
AI
like,
is a.
it's not just AI, right? I mean, like, you have this broken down.
Not only
Yeah.
that, he can look at that. He can look at that and tell you when's the best time to have a baby.
Okay, so the audience might not have the context for that, but let me continue with the let me continue with the AI breakdown. So a lot of developments here, there are some, gaming. The gaming sector is investing a lot in AI. There are some really nice iterations. There are different components to AI, training, inference, infra. So there are privacy, ZK stuff. So there are all these different projects, and if you look at the Web2 investments, a big majority of them in the last 2 years are going to AI, and so because potentially blockchains could enable, uh, address some of the issues that we have in Web2 AI, which is centralization and all these problems. Um, there is a lot of funds, there's a lot of projects and talent working on this very promising sector, and this is why you see this already hundreds of projects working on this sector. So it is a very promising narrative AI for sure. It's one that I'm focusing a lot, and and it has been performing really well in the last month. If we look at the history of narratives here, and if we look at AI, we would see that here in February and also in October and the other month they had really good month. But you also will see that if we search memes, you will see even more occurrences of memes here. So I would say in 2024, some of the best performing narratives have been memes, AI, and real world assets. All of them
You
have their own very unique kind of audiences.
you just revealed something really interesting that I don't know that I paid attention to before, but you said that AI has so many different participants in it,
Mhm.
which really adds validity to the strength of that sector. How do they compare in terms of numbers of numbers of participants, numbers of players in that space versus some of the other categories?
I would say that it's a relatively a new sector, like and decentralized AI is most of the projects in that sector that you saw on the AI dashboard have launched within the last 12 months. Most of them, the vast majority of them. So a lot of them haven't yet launched live in the mainnet, still in progress. Although many of them have billions in valuations because of the expectations of how big this specific sector will be in crypto and outside crypto. Uh, so it's a lot of the pumps that we've seen in the AI sector is due to that. However, if you look at what is out concretely and what can you do with it, it's a lot of it still it's very early days. So it's I would say it's still kind of immature in terms of what you can actually achieve compared to many other sectors and narratives like DEXs. I'm sure Mark can has knowledge of the entire history of DEXs from the first versions of Banker all the way to today. And there are already a few years of development there in the AI sector. Everything is new, and people are trying out stuff. So still, very early days.
And are you tracking kind of, for lack of better terms, I'll call it the mass of each sector, right? With the number of participants in that sector, is that something that you track?
Yeah, this is a great question, and this is actually some of the bigger projects that I'm working on. We have this narrative dashboard, which is just showing you the price, so just how different tokens are performing. However, something complementary to that is, okay, what is the on-chain usage? How many users, how many transactions, what volumes, etc. So this is something that I'm building, new dashboards that will come in the next month, but stay tuned for more news on that.
Very interesting. That's cool.
Corio, I had one question for you real fast before I hand it over to
Mm-hmm.
Mark. We had spoken about Farcaster a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Aptos is really picking up, right, in terms of L1s, like noticeably. Have you noticed anything or have you looked on Farcaster at all to see what is being said about Aptos specifically? So that way, we can kind of get ahead of that narrative and look out for certain things before it kind of takes off.
Absolutely, very great point. I haven't actually looked at on Forecaster. However, I saw some kind of activity on Twitter, but let me put social trends here. We can quickly do that.
Can I bring you back up on stage, your screen?
Oh yeah, you can't see my screen yet?
No. I'm going to add you back
Oh
up.
yeah. I just to
Okay.
finalize on that. So here we have a number of do I have Aptos here? Yes, I have Aptos. So if we remove all these other projects so that we can better see Bitcoin. Okay, so Phantom cover. So it seems that on Forecaster, since the last week, we are seeing some kind of uptrend. We see that like maybe 7, 8 days ago, we had like 10 mentions, but like two days ago, we had like 67 mentions, 52 mentions, which is 5x, 6x what we had in the previous days.
Wow.
So this is we are seeing kind of an uptrend. If I zoom in here, you would see that compared to the last weeks, we are seeing some kind of uptrend obviously here. But to know what people are talking about, we would need to come here. And so if you put Aptos and then, I can even go here so that it's faster. If I put Aptos, sorry, this is the exclusion word. If I put Aptos here and I run that, then we will get the results on what people are talking about on Forecaster about Aptos and the different mentions, etc. It takes just a few seconds to get the results, but this is something that in the meanwhile anybody can try. The dashboard is open, so anytime you have some kind of you want to see some trends about
Trend.
any project, any trend, any narrative, any ticker or anything, you can just come up and do this research for the number of days that you want, and then you can get
Yeah.
the results on
Oh, you can choose the number of days also. That's awesome.
yeah, and then you can also choose some exclusion words if you, for example, if you don't want to see their airdrop related stuff, but you want to see what people are saying about Aptos, but not the airdrop. You can put airdrop here, and then that would use this exclusion word to exclude what you don't want. So
Awesome.
yeah, so this is taking a bit of time, but let's give it
That's
a few
okay.
seconds.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, at least
yeah,
now we can, like, the viewers can see how they can go into your dashboard, how they can look at this themselves, because, obviously it's wonderful to see what the trends are, right? But we kind of want to get ahead of whatever narratives we can in order to kind of make our
exactly.
moves before versus after, right?
So
So
let
if we can
me
kind of dig
just,
a little bit, like we are
uh-huh.
on Farcaster, like we are on your dashboard right now, and kind of see what's the reason for this taking off like it is. I love that couple, by the way. Taking off
I
like
don't
it
know what I
is.
have this here, but yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to show is something related to the Twitter advanced search, which some people might not be familiar with. But here, actually, you can say, for example, I want to see all the mentions of Aptos in the last weeks. So let's say in the
What'd
last
you do?
4
Aptos
days.
space since
Aptos space
2024.
since then
No
the
space.
date in this specific format, and then you can say because you want to see the tweets that have been mentioned a lot, so you want to say I want a minimum retweet of, let's say, 40, for example, and then you would be able to see what people are talking about on Aptos, and you can also, so here we see some mentions of Aptos, etc. And you can also like use some exclusion words. So for example, here we see here giveaway. So you can say, I don't want to see all these giveaway or airdrop stuff. So you just put a minus in front, and then you do the search, and then you can go deeper and see actually what's happening. So this is one thing
That's
now we
so
can.
helpful. Really
And
fast,
then now,
before you ditch your Twitter, will you
yes,
copy that and paste it here in the comments? I feel like that's so
sure.
useful for so many
Sh
people.
Yeah,
Maybe we
absolutely.
could
I
just give
use
them
that all
that
the
as an
time, actually.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
posted that on the private chat, but I let you share
Cool.
that with the audience. This is something I use almost every day for different trends and narratives. Now, just to finalize and coming back on the Farcaster here, so we search
Sorry.
Aptos, and then you can see on different dates what people are saying. So some people are talking about the price. Some people are um, talking about the number of daily transactions, etc. But it seems that people are kind of mentioning different aspects of it. So yeah, you can actually see here, you can sort by date, etc., etc. So there are some news from Aptos. DeFi is partnering with Aptos, blah blah blah. So yeah, you can actually then follow and go deeper, etc., etc.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm
Sure.
going to share this sample or this example also, so I appreciate it. Mark, I want to hand it over to you. I don't know if you have anything special planned for us today. Speaking of L1s, though, and chains and narratives, congratulations, because I saw that Bancor successfully deployed the ARB Fastlane and Carbon DeFi on Say V2. So,
Yes.
congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, very excited to be this is our first native deployment since EOS back in 2018. So it's very refreshing for the project, I think, to be participating in a blockchain outside of Ethereum for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what do you have planned for us today? Sure, are we going to be sharing your screen, or are we going to be discussing? Let's see. I see us on your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that I would come back to something that I said last week, and this is, I think, following on from what both of the other guests have already spoken about. And so what I said, or what I speculated on, was that that one of two things I think is likely to happen. And in a way, this is going to sound obvious, but I think it's still worth repeating. But I have been observing this this descending channel on Ethereum versus Bitcoin. And these descending channels are generally, very bullish patterns, especially on like these longer, on these longer time frames. Suggest that when it breaks out, it will likely be well sustained. And there are a couple of reasons why to believe that this channel could be coming to an end. One is that if you have a look at what's happening on the RSI during this whole period, you can see that the strength has been trending down. So there was no real reason to believe that that this channel was going to end anytime up until October of last year. But then just recently, you can see that the strength has actually started to turn around, even though the trend in the channel has really just been continuing in this direction. So there is something sort of like a bullish reversal indicator here. So this is a bullish divergence, kind of. It's not a textbook bullish divergence, but close enough. So it could be that actually, Ethereum is about to start, reversing versus BTC. And so one of the things that I said was that, if you already had made this trade, right, which is, going back a couple of weeks now, that I said at the bottom of this channel that I think it is a good time to swap BTC out for Ethereum, because history suggests that we will be returning to the top of this channel. It happened a lot more quickly than I expected, and I think that the Ethereum ETF news had a lot to do with that. But you can see prices stalled pretty much where I thought it would. If you did sell your ETH back for Bitcoin last week, I still think that is a considered choice, and you shouldn't be ashamed about that. That's a really good take profits anyway, because I think that's more than a 20% increase. But yeah, what's going to happen next? Corio drawn something on his chart that I agree with. So having considered, some of these other indicators and the fact that we actually have a bullish cross on the MACD as well, again happening, in the negatives, which is what I like to see. And so if this confirms above here, then I think that this will be it's setting itself up, I think, for a very strong reversal pattern. You can also see there might be something like a head and shoulders pattern maybe starting to appear here, an upside down heads and shoulders pattern, which would kind of be what we would expect to happen. If you pay attention to how these things kind of develop, because what I would expect is that if we do actually continue out of this channel, that eventually, we will be expecting a pullback to test the top of it before continuing higher. And so that might actually complete that right part of the inverted shoulder before we continue higher.
Mark, have you seen a date or a time frame, or you, Corio, have you guys, either of you, seen a time frame of when those ETH ETFs are going to hit the market?
No, but I think that if the bureaucracy in the United States is anything to go by, then it could be. I don't think it's going to happen, like immediately. I don't think
I
this
saw
is a
I
few weeks
saw
away.
I
I think it's probably
saw
a month or two away.
I saw I saw an article that said weeks, possibly months.
Right.
And so that's a pretty wide swath of range.
I think it's necessarily wide. Like even if I had very credible information about when it's going to hit, I still wouldn't believe it. Not because the information is bad, but because even the authorities who are in charge of making these things happen tend to get delayed. It's like, I think government and development have a lot in common, which is you never really trust the engineer when they say that something is a week away. And so if a politician tells you it's weeks to months, it's probably because they're in a management position and they know how long it's going to actually take.
But we can
But yeah,
still
I think
speculate on the macro, just that we know that it's at least happening, right? We know it's at least going to happen.
Yeah, we know it's going to happen. As to when is anyone's guess. I don't think that it's not going to get dragged out and be the circus that the Bitcoin ETF was.
Right.
It would surprise me if we don't get, if it doesn't come to fruition before the end of the year, for example. And I think it's going to be a lot sooner than that.
Oh, for sure. I think so too.
Yeah, I think if it's not here by September, I'll be not just disappointed, but surprised. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. Okay. Like, so if we're expecting this, and again, this is like, pure dubious speculation. But if I was convinced that this is the type of pattern that Ethereum is going to play out in, one of the things that I'd be looking for is like where the bounce is going to happen. And there'll be some technical analysts, if we want to call it that will tell you that they are looking for like very specific patterns, like this sort of neck and shoulder line. So we could sort of come back up to here before coming back down to test the bottom of the channel. And I think that that's compelling, but what I prefer is kind of confluence levels. And if we are treating this as the neck and shoulder line, I just don't see like a lot of good reason to believe it, especially when we have so recently a whole lot of, like multi-weeks in this region here. And so if I had taken this trade back here, swapping BTC for ETH, and I wrote it up here, I think I would be taking profits right now, because it's very likely that we actually just get rejected off the top of this channel and continue down again. But if you believe in the reversal situation, and like I said, I think there's some evidence in social mood to suggest that ETH will continue higher. When are we going to come back to recheck the channel, if ever? And I think that this range here, the price action that we had between sort of June and August of 2023 is probably a good target, at least where we're expecting to see some resistance before we come back down. And so what I wanted to show is that there is a way to set up this trade in Carbon if we wanted to commit to it now. So let's say that you had completed, you had determined your specific bias on the market. And I'm not saying that I'm right here or even recommending that this is how you trade, but I think that it's a legitimate perspective to have. And if I was going to trade this, I think that what I would do is I would come in with my ETH and decide to rotate it back into one of the wrapped Bitcoins somewhere in this confluence level, right? If this chart continues up, and I think that it will, I don't really want to choose a specific price here, because I think we could either get to the bottom of it and get rejected down. We might go all the way to the top. And so being able to sort of spread out my my asking prices across this channel, I think is an intelligent way to do it. And then, we know where the top of the channel is because it's where we are right now. And so I could actually start setting my asking prices even above the current market price, because I'm not going to have any liquidity here yet. I'm going to be waiting for for my asking prices to be taken before these bidding prices start to fill up. So what this means is I could put in some arbitrary number of ETH. Let's just say that I'm putting 1 ETH here, and I would literally say this is going to be 0 BTC. And this is essentially, the representation of specifically that market outlook that I've communicated here. I think the price of ETH is going to travel into this region, and that's going to be an advantageous place to flip the ETH back for a BTC representative, and then wait for it to come back down to recheck the top of the channel, which is again around about where we are today. And then I get to basically sell high and then buy low before before holding on to this ether as it continues higher. But yeah, I just wanted to demonstrate that there are specific setups, and this just happens to be a very good one. One, because we've spoken about meme coins and things before as a use case on Carbon, but actually even the industry giants like ETH and Bitcoin are occasionally very well set up to trade in a very specific pattern.
Well, I
And what
like
you'll
that
find,
pair. I like that pair because on the upside you're printing more sats,
right?
and who doesn't want more of that? And worst case scenario, you're left with ETH, which also has a bullish outlook based on this new ETF coming.
Well, yeah, and
Whereas a lot of the
actually
memes could just disappear.
Yeah, this is actually the other way around, right? If ETH shoots all the way through this, you're going to be left with Bitcoin, which is like, oh, how disappointing. Like no one's really upset to be to be bag holding on Bitcoin in a bull market. But you're absolutely right. When you're trading a pair like these two, to be left with the worst of the two, if you happen to miss your trade, it's not like you're taking the worst risk in the world. Especially if especially acknowledging that even deciding to do nothing, if you already have ETH or you already have Bitcoin, you're already taking that risk. So it's not like by refusing to trade, you're sort of de-risking yourself. It's just a different type of risk. Doing nothing has risks as well, and like I think Keith and I have said before, doing nothing is a totally reasonable decision to make, so long as it is a decision. If it's just your, status quo or just like your de facto choice, then I don't think that you are considering your positions carefully enough.
Yeah. So I like to say sitting on hands is a strategy and out is a position.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah,
do
and there are
say
a
it, and
couple.
it is true. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, there are a couple of other things that I wanted to point out. So, like for example, I think I was paying attention to Corio's layer 1 dashboard, and I remember, like, I saw ICP there, and I remember when this thing came out because I know a lot of people that bought right up here when it was valued at $650 a token, and we're now down at 12. And it's interesting to see like some people coming back to this thing because it looked, that people are saying that this is a bottoming pattern. But I just wanted to point out that, like, just because things are going up doesn't mean that it's, that it is what you want it to be. So for example, on this particular token, you can see that there is a very strong, higher high on the candles, but on the RSI, it's definitely a lower low. Like, this is a very strong bearish reversal pattern, and we also see a death cross on the MACD, and again happening relatively high, and it looks like this is going to be, a devastating like reversal. And that's not because I don't know anything about the ICP project, by the way. It could be that there actually is some like bullish narrative or something else. Maybe they've done a lot of development. It could be the best project in the world. I have no idea. I've just noticed that there's been a lot of price chat about it recently in the last couple of months, and that makes sense because people get attracted to this kind of 549% gain that it's recently had. But it's important to recognize when things are running out of steam, and I think that this particular pair actually is. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that I'm usually the resident bear on these calls, and I don't mind being that. But I can't be this week for either BTC or ETH. Like, they're actually both looking pretty good. So one of the things that you'll remember way back, way back here, that one of the few times I've actually made a really reasonable call was when I saw this making a higher high, but I saw the RSI trending lower. And this was actually, I was calling for a much larger dip down. I didn't get anywhere near my estimate, but this was one of the few times that I was right. And today, I'm not seeing anything like that. Like, this is actually, I agree with Corio's perspective here. It is interesting to see when Keith put up the liquidity charts that we actually do have an enormous amount of like resistance liquidity above the current price point. But I kind of agree that if you don't get like a really sharp rejection, that it's generally bullish. It could mean that we just kind of trend this way for a little while, and we'll see what happens. And maybe we'll get what Keith calls a ceiling pull, and eventually the price can continue up. But there's nothing here. I mean, even, some people might point at this death cross here on the MACD and say this is really bad news. But by itself, I don't think it's necessarily all that meaningful. We're still, there's no divergence on the histogram. There's no divergence on the RSI. I think it's okay, until this makes a higher high. If the RSI doesn't get any higher, I think we're in trouble. But if this balances out here, I'm actually thinking it's okay. And ETH versus USD is also not looking too bad. It's looking maybe, it was like a little overcooked. But again, we haven't actually made a higher high here. And so this, this RSI isn't yet looking like a bearish divergence. And, other people, again, will point to this death cross, but it looks like that's about to get invalidated as we cross back up over here. So, yeah, I mean, the two market kings, ETH and Bitcoin, I see nothing to be concerned about, really. I mean, other than the resistance that we're seeing for Bitcoin in the fire charts, which, I mean, is concerning if you want the price to move quickly.
It's a short-term thing, though, right? And
exactly.
And I had posted something on Friday saying that 65 would hold, and if it doesn't, 60, that I'm fully prepared to go to 60. And the responses came to me, Keith, why are you so bearish? Well, I didn't say it was bearish. Okay, what I said was I have confidence in these levels holding, so I'm not going to let it shake me out. And so everything is in perspective. When Corio opened his first Bitcoin chart, I noticed he had a cup and handle on there. And if you remember back to March, I also had that pattern for the year of actually from the all-time high down to March when we went back to 69K. So I think what we're seeing is this handle on the cup and handle play out here. And yes, we could chop sideways. Those areas of consolidation are strong to me, and that's why I'm looking to see more compression in this consolidation range rather than being so far and wide. Let me try and make this on camera. It's hard to with my little blurry cam, but that's why I'm trying to see things narrow down from a 30% range trading range into a real consolidated, tighter consolidation range, so that we can establish that RS flip and build from there to move up. I just think it's going to take time, and the market gets impatient. And because
Yeah,
the market
exactly.
gets impatient, that creates opportunity. In the time we've been on this call, we have seen Bitcoin lose 68K. We're down in the high 67s, and we've also seen those blocks of liquidity that move down into that 71K range. Guess what? They're stepping back up to 72 and
Right.
72.5 right now. So there's a little gamification going on in there, and that happens, and that's okay. I would just say that you have to be patient in this market, and when we are trading in this wide range from the mid 50s or even 60K up to 73K, that's opportunity. That's opportunity to trade and make money in both directions, and your tool on Carbon is ideal for that, right? Trade this range, and the broader that range, the more money you can make in
Exactly.
that range. Absolutely. But it's a range trading game right now until we get to the breakout. Once we get to that breakout, then we talk about price discovery and where things could really go from here.
You guys have been awesome. Anything else anybody wants to throw out there? I know we went over a little bit, so I appreciate you guys sticking around. We have, close to 1,200 viewers. So thank
Awesome.
you guys all for tuning in and I guess taking advantage of everything that the guys have to give. Every
If
week
there's
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, there's one thing that I can add. It's like I'm also seeing, I don't know what to call it, but there's a lot of this like bandwagon effect. I think that like one of the things that we saw, which was extremely bullish, and the Bitcoin community knows this better than anyone, is that when the Bitcoin ETF was being discussed like every day, when it was a big news item, it attracts a lot more people, like to the coin and to that vehicle. And I think that what we will likely see is like more of this kind of like with the Ethereum ETF, if that becomes if that materializes in the near future, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be people sort of who are now bored of the Bitcoin ETF narrative, who are now going to jump onto the Ethereum ETF narrative and this kind of thing. And I just want to like warn people against following the crowd too much. I think there's a lot of trading books that are written about this like specific effect, and we call it FOMO today, but it's been known by like many different names throughout history. But in general, like following the crowd can be a very dangerous thing, especially when you have to appreciate that there are people in control of the market with better information than you have, who don't have your best interests at heart. And so I'm not necessarily saying don't follow the crowd. I'm just saying that just because your taxi driver tells you to buy Ethereum because the ETF is coming out doesn't make it good advice.
I would add to that and just say quantify your advice, right? There are literally an infinite amount of data sources and so-called influencers in this space. Following anybody blindly, myself included, on what we say is foolish. You will ultimately get screwed. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. Anybody that claims that they do is a pathological liar. So know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, and that's okay, because everybody starts trading at some point in time and you have to learn. But take every bit of knowledge that you can absorb and then make your decisions based on how all of this knowledge comes together, and see what makes sense and see what you understand. If you're trading what I see and you don't understand what I'm showing you, then don't make the decisions on what you don't understand. Make decisions on what you understand. So start with the most simple stuff that you can, and you can build on that. As you go through time. Corio has an incredible amount of information. I mean, you could build your whole trading career off of that dashboard. There's so much in there, though, that it's overwhelming. So to try and tackle it all at once is probably a mistake. And Corio, I don't want to put words in your mouth, because you know this better than anybody. You know what's there, and you know how to use it. And people need to understand how to use the data that is that's available to them to not just to make decisions, but to support the way that you like to trade. Don't trade the way that I like to
Absolutely.
trade. Trade the way that you're comfortable trading, and you have to find the tools and the data that fit the way that you like to trade. If you're trying to retrofit it the other way and force yourself into somebody else's method, that's not going to help you grow in the long run.
I absolutely agree with what you said, and I would also say that when you're following someone else, and that someone else, it could be me or Keith or anybody, they're sharing an idea. I might share an entry saying, okay, this is interesting to me, but you don't know when I'm going to exit. You don't know how I'm scaling in. You don't know my risk profile. You don't know actually, when I will scale out and what other positions I have and how I'm hedging all these things. Nobody share all of these things, and I might say something today. Tomorrow we might receive a new news, and then I will actually change all my trades because we have to adapt to new information. And that means that, and then you have actually a very small set of things that I've done that I shared publicly. So it's very difficult actually for either, content creators or any of us to share the full image of that what we have, and for others to follow exactly the entire, thing. So it's, as Keith said, it's best to try to get inspiration, but ultimately develop your own intuition.
Yep.
So well put, all of that. I think it just sums up so much of like what we're actually trying to do here, right? Like show people the actual tools, how to look at the order book, how to look at this sort of liquidity that we're seeing stacked in there, how to look at these ranges and see what we make of it, and not just blindly lead people into trades that, we're benefiting from in some wild way. Because I mean, we're obviously, well, I say obviously, I hope it's obvious to the viewers that this isn't something that we're directly benefiting from. This is just fun for all of us because you guys all have these amazing tools that people can really, really benefit from, in order to, excel and become better traders. And Corio, you do have so much info out there. It can be overwhelming. And I think this is where you guys were saying, and then I'll end it because I know we're over time. It was kind of like trading in general, right? Do you look at the daily, the weekly, the monthly? Like, how do you guys have your charts? What are the sort of indicators and things that you're looking at? You kind of figure out, because I think all three of you look at different things when you're actually you're looking at the same chart, but you're looking at completely different things at times, right? I think it's just finding what works best for you, and kind of just like honing in on that, right? If there's one thing I've kind of taken, it's not to follow what everybody else is doing, but to learn my own way of doing this, where it makes the most sense to me and I'm confident in what I'm doing. I hope that the viewers also take that from what you guys are sharing with them. Amazing. You guys are awesome as always. Thank you so much. I shared the guys' info in the comments, their Twitter handles or X handles. I don't know what we call it now. Corio's Dune dashboard, link for his dashboard, some material indicators, some things about Banter and Carbon DeFi. I also shared the latest blog that I had written. It's about liquidity. If you think you're making the most of your liquidity, think again. Doing a side-by-side comparison of a couple of things. I hope that you all check it out. Somebody commented, got your point that everybody has different edge and style and comfortable with different sites and analyzing market structure and different psychology. Cool. Well, thank you for tuning in, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. We will see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. UTC.
Thank you, Jen. Great job as always.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. You too. We'll see ya.
Bye.